Pope Francis has often said the papacy is for life, but a resignation has never been out of the question. The Pope reiterates that if he were to resign due to medical problems, he would not be called Pope Emeritus. Rather, he would be simply Bishop Emeritus of Rome and serve as a confessor.
Catholics around the world were left in disbelief by Pope Francis's sudden resignation, an unexpected move in modern church history. But the real shock came with his choice for a successor, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle from the Philippines.
Pope Francis promotes the former Archbishop of Manila, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, to the rank of Cardinal Bishop. Tagle is the first Filipino to be among 11 of the highest-ranking cardinals in the Vatican.
A leader from the far side of the world. Why did Pope Francis step down at such a critical time? And what does this unexpected decision mean for the future of the Catholic Church? Join us as we dive into the stunning events that led to Cardinal Tagle's rise as the new Pope. Revolutionary shepherd in turbulent time. Pope Francis has made an unprecedented change in the position, activity, and image in the contemporary Catholic Church in existential threats. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit and the first South American Pope, which undoubtedly marked a new epoch of the church hierarchy. His time in the office was marked by fighters for the voiceless, progressive changes, and passion for compassion and modesty. His papacy revealed a new way of governing a religious organization that was rooted in culture, but faced a new world that was quickly moving into a new era of development. In his years as Pope, Francis would bring morality to the forefront as the spokesperson of the voiceless and the marginalized. His behavior remained consistent with this vision of a Church of the Poor.
The Catholic Church's new Pope, Francis I, has said in his first audience with the media that he wants a poor church for the poor.
An idea which earned support from millions globally. The humbling gestures of visiting refugees in a camp or washing feet of prisoners would not be far from the leadership style he adopted. Many of his encyclicals, starting with Laudato Si on climate change and Fratelli Tutti, fraternity, and social friendship, were heard and responded to in the whole world, and provided a way to reflect even outside of the Church. Francis was also very much against tainted liberalism, consumerism, pollution, and the indifference of the world to suffering. His teachings urged people to be connected, support one another, and be stewards of the earth. Nonetheless, he was criticized for the progressive approach he embraced.
Pope Francis has embraced Mexico's poor indigenous South, denouncing what he described as the people's systemic exclusion from society.
His plan was regarded as liberal by some conservative factions of the Church, and thus resulted in ideological conflict that gave further insight to the existing split in the Vatican. Among the threads which could be considered as reflecting the weak sides of Pope Francis's governance, the reaction to the clergyman's non-consensual act of minors is one of the most noteworthy topics. Although he launched vigorous measures for accomplishing this malaise, including hosting of summits, setting up of new directives, besides meeting victims, they said he never followed adequate measures for eradicating the culture of hush and perceived impunity. The dynamics of trying to meet the needs of survivors, the church leadership, and believers can be quite challenging. Besides these challenges, Francis witnessed his health problems and enormous responsibility as the head of the Church in the period of a world crisis that has affected the whole of humanity by the COVID-19 virus. His decision to resign, a rare event in the papacy, has attracted a lot of analysis. Was it his health? The constant demands for internal divisions management? Or that a new approach was required to lead the Church into the future? However, the resignation of Pope Francis indicates the end of such an era characterized by dilemmas, empathy, and gallantry. Cardinal Luis Tagle succeeded him And he gets the challenging work of advancing this further in Francis's vision, but also correcting the unfinished part of it. Who is this Cardinal Tagle, and what is the Church going to be like once he takes over the reins of leadership? Visionary leader of a world communion. The inspiring journey of Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle to the papacy is one of hope, faith, and an ability to touch the lives of so many individuals all over the world in an extraordinary manner.
It's an enormous undertaking to prepare for a papal visit, but observers notice Cardinal Tagle is not only up for the job, he does it with the ease, grace, and humility they say is his trademark cool as the popular Archbishop of Manila.
Hailing from the Philippines, which is an ardently Catholic country, and where religion forms an integral part of the social fabric of the society, Tagle had simple upbringing, and he was instilled with the culture of serving others. From a humble background, he grew to occupy one of the most important offices in the Roman Catholic Church. His personality and leadership qualities cannot be questioned. This firmly established the basis of what would be known as a brilliant theological mind. In regards to Tagle's education, he received philosophical and theological education in the Philippines, further education in the United States, doctorate in sacred theology. His education was accompanied by strong social skills, which allowed the man to communicate with people on a very spiritual level. Thus, he became a successful speaker and important person in the Church. Tagle's appointment as the prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples strengthened his global leadership. Here, he had responsibility for the mission, as well as he was to see that the message of the Church spread in every part of the world. He was a builder of a bridge, since his focus was on culture and the dignity of every person, while the Church was facing internal and external issues. All the same, Tagle's road to the papacy has not been smooth sailing as one might expect given his accomplishments so far. These points are liberal for the Church, and here he supported liberal policies such as those on social justice and poverty, which have angered conservative factions within the Church. However, his courtesy with how he deals with the ideologies within them shows that he can work well to become a unifying figure. How will he handle challenges that are destabilizing the Church and undermines its credibility in society today? Confronting complex challenges in the Church. The Catholic Church of today is in face of some crucial problems that challenge its leadership morality, its power in the world, and its unity. In the new role as the Pope, Cardinal Tagle will encounter many challenges and precariously place issues. One of the challenges that has been ongoing is the Clergy Non-Consensual Act, which has brought a very negative image to the Church.
Abuse of minors and other vulnerable people not only breaks divine and ecclesiastical law, but it's also public criminal behavior.
Non-consensual act crises cannot be considered as the thing of the past and is present in the world, and there are cases emerging and old cases of cover-ups. Mainly the survivors and advocates groups require accountability, transparency, and justice, in which Pope Francis tried to work, but is not fully comprehensive. Tagle acquires this uncompleted task and has to know how he will regain trust of such individuals, as well as introduce structural changes aimed at eradicating such malpractices in future. The other emerging concern is the continued decline of the Church's authoritative influence in regions that were initially mainly populated by Catholics in Europe and North America. The obligations have also declined due to secularization, decrease of church attendees, and change of the generation's values. Tagle's friendly disposition suggests that he still has the potential for revitalizing otherwise demoralized communities, but this will call for contrasting procedures that are both traditional and liberal. In the following years, priests and clergy of the Catholic Church have become associated with scandals that have soiled the image of the Church. Of these crises, the clergy non-consensual act crisis has turned out to be the worst. Still, new cases are being brought to the public attention every year, revealing the depth of the problem and institutionalized lack of transparency. Survivors campaign for justice, but their calls have been silenced or ignored, or witnessed piecemeal changes at best. This festering sore not only destroys the faith of the Catholic Church and members of the society, but also denies so many people their faith, because the Church has let them down repeatedly. Another large scandal is financial corruption. Fraud, theft, embezzlement, and money laundering, misuse of funds and mismanagement of assets relating to the Vatican's finances have eroded public trust.
Pope Francis says he authorized the October 1st raid after the Vatican criminal prosecutor came to him with evidence of corruption involving a Holy See investment in a London real estate venture.
Among the more recent accountability proposals was the reform of the Church's finances, reporting, and audit mechanisms, all of which have met fierce resistance from various interest groups. Tagle, who is well noted for his integrity, blended with accountability issues, must effectively tread on this minefield with both rigidity and tact. Clerical overtures and the seeming aloofness of Catholic institutions from the poorer and most needy of societies have compounded betrayal. A common sentiment among the believers is that hierarchy is out of touch with realities of people's lives, and therefore extremely distrusted. Yet now comes hope in the form of Pope Tagle, who is famous for his humility and closeness to the suffering people. If the Church is to close this gap, it will take a major change in its methods and relationship with the believers. How will he solve these basic systemic problems while rebuilding the confidence and trust in the Church? Disunity of the Catholic Church. While the Catholic Church is a single entity, it is first and foremost a worldwide church made up of the people of countless different cultures, traditions, and beliefs. But it is this diversity which brings strength and also serves to create major splits within the Church and threatens the very unity of the organization. So even as a pope, Cardinal Tagle has to tread carefully on such ideological fault lines so as not to fracture the Church into sections. Among these, the most debated issue is the question of liturgical practices. Conservatives want an emphasis on the Latin Mass as a key to being a genuine Catholic, while liberals want change to improve understanding of worship and its appropriateness. Finding a middle ground between these theories will be a major test for Tagle, especially since his leadership approach is more welcoming of everyone. Others are women's role in church, which is also a contentious issue. Clergy advocates for gender equality said that women should have a higher chance of leadership and decision-making in the church. However, the conservatives do not want any changes, saying that they are not allowed by doctrinal and historical literature. This kind of intention is another indication of Tagle's open-mindedness to hear from others, to understand different opinions, would work in his favor as he tries to handle this issue. Interpretations of theological divisions also fuel internal conflict because different beliefs are held. A number of them advocate for rigidity in doctrine and practice, others for liberal interpretation and practice. Most of these differences are seen whenever people of such beliefs are arguing, especially on matters concerning divorce, and remarriage. This means that Tagle's skills to bring those different groups into coming together and talk and appreciate each other will be a critical feature in ensuring unity in the Church. Over the recent decades, the Catholic Church has unfortunately suffered a discredit in their global relevance due to scandals, perceived autocratic nature, and the inability to change with society. This loss of faith has made the Church try as hard as it can to make people still come to it despite the high amount of secularism in today's society. This kind of situation is an immediate challenge to Pope Tagle, and he must employ the means to reformulate the Church and restore its credibility. The next difficulty is with regard to the youth in the Church today. Most of the young people have a perception that the Church is irrelevant to present generation values. To reverse that trend, Tagle must adopt modern tactics when sharing the Word, effectively using technology and social networking to reach today's intelligent audience. Also, he needs to respond to young Catholics who claim that the Church discriminates against them when it comes to questions like same-sex marriage or female priesthood.
Churches in the state haven't been holding back when it comes to their thoughts on same-sex marriage. 16 WAPT's Ali Ware tells us what some church leaders have to say on the historic ruling.
In addition, rebuilding of confidence will involve enhancing public transparency and accountability issues in the leadership of the Church. The worshippers believe the Vatican should embrace transparency on its financial statements, accountable for its deeds. Tagle has a low-key, transparent, and righteous profile, which is a great positive, but he would face a lot of challenges from entrenched players within the Vatican. How will Tagle alter this view when he is the head of the Church, leading the institution of an increasingly fast and diverse society? And what are those things he needs to carry from his predecessor? Unfinished business of the Pope Francis. Pope Francis has given his papal resignation, surprising the entire Catholic world and leaving a record for the Church to remember. This transition is not only historic in the light of the fact that it was a papal resignation, but also because the next leader of the global Catholic community could be Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. The Church is a changed Church after the pontificate of Pope Francis, a leader who offers progressive reforms, inclusiveness, and social justice. Meanwhile, Cardinal Tagle is a figure with similar concerns for values in a period which contains threats that would possibly reshape this future. All this happens during the Jubilee of Hope, which means renewal and optimism, making the change quite significant and impacting. In the past 10 years, we've seen the current Pope Francis completely redefine what it means to be a pope through his focus on mercy, the inclusion of those who were previously marginalized by the Church, and societal justice. His leadership has exhibited policies of risk-taking in order to solve some of the age-long problems within the Church, such as clerical, non-consensual acts, financial injustice, and climate change. Despite experiencing so many difficulties, Francis never a moment doubted the transformative ability of the Church to adapt to current human society. His decision resembles that of Benedict XVI. Thus, Francis is the second pope of modern history who resigns from the position. But in private, there are accounts that Pope Francis was relieved at the decision to resign as his work in the Church was done. This sense of closure comes from his redemptive term in which he addressed subjects which were out of bound within the Church. Through dialogue with progressive members of the Church on such issues and taking on the causes of unity between different religious faiths, Francis has made an enormous impact on the Catholic Church and the world as a whole. The time frame that Pope Francis chooses to resign is also quite unprecedented. He finally resigns when the whole world is preparing for a Jubilee Year of Hope. This just adds another layer of complexity to the process of transition and serves to underscore the opportunity for improvement that comes from changing leadership. The resignation also underscores the many issues associated with Pope transition logistically and culturally, with emphasis on the conclave. The College of Cardinals, which is a group of chosen church administrators, will assemble in the Sistine Chapel to choose the next pope. However, this process is still camouflaged, The impact of an outgoing pope, which is quite tremendous in most cases, cannot be overemphasized. Pope Francis' actions throughout his ministry cardinal appointments, most notably, will indeed influence what transpires in the conclave. Among the potential successors, one name stands out: Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. Cardinal Tagle originated from the Philippines, is a compassionate theologian and social justice advocate. This orientation with the current Pope Francis's liberal posture sees him as the most suitable candidate. Tagle's leadership style has been associated with stewardship of diversity, voice for the voiceless, and the church that does not merely dictate, but hears culture. Even as the official of Caritas Internationalis,
Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle was elected president of Caritas Internationalis. The Filipino cardinal is the organization's first president from Asia,
which is the humanitarian branch of the Vatican. Tagle had led campaigns around the world on significant causes such as poverty, immigration, and climate change. These have consisted of things as school and vocational training for education for sub-Saharan Africa, and interfaith dialogue for religious conflict in Myanmar and encouraging refugees in Lebanon and Jordan. Such initiatives are his vision of the church that teaches and also makes justice and compassion possible. Tagle's approach to leading also underlines one more important practice: acculturation or incorporation of the local cultures to the Catholic values. In this regard, through using indigenous music, arts, and languages whenever providing the celebrations of the sacraments, he has made the Church and its members ever more closely linked. Pope Francis initiated many changes, however, many of which have not yet been realized. From what he committed himself in ecology up to canonical solutions to the problems, Francis provided a roadmap which Pope Tagle must take. Will he trend this path or create one of his own? One of them is the synodality process for increasing lay people's involvement in the decision-making process within the Church. Although Francis focused on listening to others and their integration, progress seems far from over. The way that Tagle will work on this initiative will show his dedication to the uptake of shared leadership. Moreover, the work of Francis to combat clericalism and to depowerate the campus of church governance needs to stay on track. The appointive power remains in Tagle's hands, and he is known for being humble and easy to approach, so he may well and truly carry out further reforms. But can he defeat those interests that are opposed to change? When Tagle begins leading, there are a number of outstanding issues that are yet to be addressed. How is he going to be able to maintain tradition all the while treading the process of change in order to transform the Church? The biblical clerk turned world religious leader, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle's promotion to the papacy means a new era for the Catholic Church, a continuity of tradition, but a new approach towards a more diverse society. A Filipino cardinal who grew up in a deeply religious Catholic country, Tagle's rise from a simple background into one of the most significant positions in the Catholic Church shows his godly, wise, and compassionate character. In the capacity of Pope, he is endowed with the cross and burden of a global and spirited church. Luis Antonio Tagle was born on June 21, 1957 in Manila, Philippines, to a fervently practicing Catholic family. Born in a poor family, he wanted to be studious and religious from his childhood only. This young man raised by humble parents learned virtues of humility and service, which would define his future ministry. He grew up in the Philippines as its Catholic tradition played a significant role in making the country as the Catholic population within Asia. Before going to the seminary, Tagle took up philosophy in Ateneo de Manila University, which is a Jesuit school. Through his academic performance, he was given a scholarship to travel to other countries, where he proceeded to earn a doctorate in sacred theology from the Catholic University in America, Washington. His thesis, which was on the Second Vatican Council, showed a keen interest in dialogue and reform in the Church. His education background made him have theological and pastoral propensity for tackling all emerging problems within the modern Church. Tagle himself has emerged as a popular figure among the Filipinos after becoming the Archbishop of Manila. Being a popular preacher characterized by simplicity while explaining elaborate Christendom concepts, the world fondly called him the Crying Cardinal. Though many adore the leadership of Cardinal Tagle, his journey towards the papacy is not lacking several hurdles. It may also prove somewhat challenging because of his intimate relationship with Pope Francis. Opponents believe that Tagle has to prove his independence and produce his vision to mobilize the more substantial part of the Church hierarchy. One key concern is that Tagle appears rather lukewarm when it comes to the Vatican's deal with the Chinese Communist Party. This agreement, intended for the overcoming of the conflict regarding the election of bishops in China, has been regarded as an irresponsible questioning of the Church's integrity. Unfortunately, Tagle has been relatively quiet on this matter, especially that he has been occupying important positions in the Vatican. The problem with this perceived reserved disposition may be a disadvantage when the papacy is viewed in relation to the College of Cardinals as the Church copes with new global dynamics. In more recent years, Tagle's own leadership as Archbishop of Manila has not gone without criticism. He has been criticized by detractors of enmeshing the Church in politics, especially during the time of the former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. Although he has openly criticized Duterte's policies, and while this may appeal to progressive Catholics, he could be seen as treading the thin line between a spiritual leader and a politician. Moreover, specific charges of indulgence towards clerical misdeeds during his time have stirred a lot of controversy on his capacity to exercise authority within the Church. The Cardinal has formidable rivals in front of him, such as the Singaporean Cardinal William Goh, a candidate who might be lauded because of his capacity to mediate between progressive and traditionalist factions of the Church. Despite Tagle being more in tune with the vision of Pope Francis, his progressive image may become a disadvantage on those conservative members of the College of Cardinals who prefer a more middle-of-the-road cardinal to lead them. What do you think of Cardinal Tagle and his views for the Church? And also, what do you think of the other candidate for the papal throne? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.